She was just 16, a quiet, homeschooled teen, a young mother trying to piece together a life most adults would find overwhelming. But one February night in Gulfport, Florida, Miranda Cassette vanished. At first, police thought this was just another runaway case, one they had seen before. But what started as a routine missing person report quickly spiraled into one of the most chilling murder investigations the town had ever faced. Over the next 2 weeks, detectives would uncover a twisted web of lies, betrayal, and unimaginable cruelty. Behind the closed doors of a small St. Petersburg home, Miranda was held captive, tortured over a dispute so small it's almost unthinkable: missing jewelry. What happened to her in those final days is almost too horrific to imagine. Tonight, we dive deep into the case that left even seasoned investigators shaken. We'll explore Miranda's troubled young life, the disturbing world she stepped into when she met 35-year-old Stephen Gress, and the shocking chain of events that led to her brutal murder. This is not just a story of a crime, it's a story of a community searching for justice, a grandmother's desperate hope, and a baby left behind who will never know the mother who loved her. To understand this tragedy, we have to understand Miranda Cassette. Miranda's life had been anything but easy. By 16, she had already endured more loss than most people face in a lifetime. Both of her parents were gone, leaving her in the care of her grandmother in Gulfport, Florida, a woman who became her anchor in an unpredictable world. Miranda was homeschooled, which meant her world was small, quiet, and often lonely. But she was smart, curious, and fiercely independent. And though she was just a teenager, she was also a mother raising her 11-month-old baby with the help of her grandmother. Friends remember her as quiet but funny when she felt comfortable, always with music in her ears, always sketching or journaling when she was alone. But Miranda's life was also complicated. She battled mental health struggles and occasionally used drugs to escape the pressure of young motherhood and grief. She had a history of running away, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, which made her grandmother constantly worrying but also hesitant to call police every single time. Still, there was love in that house. Miranda's grandmother worried about her, prayed for her, tried to guide her. She wanted her granddaughter to have a better life than the one she was handed. And despite the turbulence, Miranda adored her baby. Friends say she talked about wanting to do better, to get her life on track, to make things right for her child. But Miranda was also searching for freedom, for belonging, for a place she could feel understood. And it was that search, that longing, that would lead her to meet 35-year-old Stephen Gress in February of 2025. February 14, 2025, Valentine's Day. For most teens, the night would be about roses, chocolate, and texts from friends. But for 16-year-old Miranda Cassette, it marked the beginning of a chain of events that would end in tragedy. Through a dating app, Miranda had connected with 35-year-old Stephen Gress. He was older, charismatic in his own rough way, and for a teenager craving independence, he seemed exciting, a man who made her feel seen. That Valentine's night, she traveled to his home in St. Petersburg. Neighbors recall seeing a nervous-looking teenage girl arriving late in the evening, head down, walking quickly to the door. Whatever happened inside that house, we may never fully know. But we do know this: Miranda left that night and returned home. The next day, something drew her back. Less than 24 hours later, Miranda went back to Gress's home, a decision that would seal her fate. For the next several days, Miranda stayed at the house with Stephen and his partner, 37-year-old Michelle Brondis. At first, it might have felt like an escape, a break from the pressures of home. But soon, the tone inside that house changed. Police later learned that sometime around February 20th, a dispute erupted, allegedly over a piece of missing jewelry. What began as an argument turned into an ordeal. According to investigators, Miranda was beaten, tortured, and held against her will. Those 4 days, from February 20th through February 24th, were a living nightmare. Behind closed doors, Miranda endured hours of escalating violence, the details of which detectives would later call some of the most disturbing they had ever seen. And then, silence. By February 24th, Miranda was gone. Her grandmother, worried sick, finally picked up the phone and reported her missing. It would be the start of a case that would horrify the entire community. When Miranda didn't come home by February 24th, her grandmother knew something was wrong. This wasn't like the other times. Normally Miranda would call, text, or eventually show up after a day or two. But this time there was nothing, no messages, no posts, no signs of life. her grandmother finally called Gulfport police. To the responding officers, it looked like another runaway report. After all, they had been through this before with Miranda. They filed the paperwork, took down the details, and began what they thought would be a routine search. But detectives quickly noticed something unusual. Miranda's phone had gone completely dark. No calls, no location pings, no activity on social media. For a teenager, especially one with a baby at home, this was alarming. Investigators started retracing her last known steps. They combed through her text messages, social media DMs, and phone records. That's when they found it, a series of messages between Miranda and a man named Stephen Gress. The text painted a troubling picture. Miranda had been at Gress's home more than once in the days before she disappeared. Detectives pulled Gress's name and were immediately struck by what they saw at prior arrests, a criminal record, and a violent temper. Armed with this new lead, police began canvassing Gress's neighborhood. Neighbors confirmed seeing Miranda coming and going in the days before she vanished. Some remembered hearing shouting from inside the house. The picture was becoming clearer. Miranda hadn't just run away. She had been with a man who was dangerous, and now she was missing without a trace. What started as a simple missing persons case was beginning to look like something far more sinister. At first, detectives couldn't rule out the possibility that Miranda had simply taken off on her own. She had a history of running away. Maybe this time she just stayed gone longer than usual. Some even speculated she could be hiding out with friends or couch hopping to avoid going back home. Officers followed up on every tip. They questioned classmates, neighbors, and anyone who might have seen her. A few witnesses thought they had spotted her walking near a convenience store late at night, but surveillance footage showed it wasn't her. Another caller swore they saw her getting into a car with two men, but that lead went nowhere. For a brief moment, hope flickered. Perhaps Miranda was alive and just avoiding home. But then detectives uncovered a crucial piece of information. Stephen Gress was already in custody. On March 5th, days after Miranda's disappearance, police had arrested Gress for drug possession and for threatening a domestic partner with a harpoon. This revelation stunned investigators. If Gress was behind bars, then where was Miranda? And what had happened to her in the days leading up to his arrest? The theory that she had simply run away began to collapse. Detectives now believed something much darker had happened, and they were running out of time to find answers. Everything changed on March 6th. That morning, detectives received a crucial tip, the kind of tip that blows a case wide open. The caller claimed to know exactly what happened to Miranda inside Stephen Gress's home. Armed with this information, investigators secured a warrant and descended on the small St. Petersburg house where Miranda had last been seen. What they found inside was chilling. Forensic teams began processing the scene. Under the glow of flashlights and forensic lamps, they found signs of a violent struggle, blood evidence, damaged furniture, and personal items belonging to Miranda. Each new discovery painted a picture more horrific than the last. As police pieced the timeline together, they came to a grim conclusion. Miranda had not just been missing, she had been held captive. Between February 20th and February 24th, investigators believe Miranda was beaten and tortured, day after day, inside that very house. Police Chief Anthony Holloway later told reporters that the brutality Miranda endured was unlike anything he had seen in his career. And yet, the most disturbing detail was still to come. Detectives tracked Gress's movements in the days after Miranda's death. Phone records and witness statements placed him in Largo, at the home of his partner Michelle, Brandy's mother. When investigators searched that property, they made another shocking discovery, evidence indicating that Miranda's body had been dismembered there. At that moment, the case shifted from a missing person investigation to a homicide. But investigators still had one mission left: find Miranda's remains and bring them home. With the grim evidence mounting, detectives retraced Stephen Gress's every move after Miranda's death. What they uncovered was almost too disturbing to comprehend. After the days of torture and abuse inside the St. Petersburg home, investigators believe Miranda was killed sometime between February 20th and February 24th. But Gress didn't stop there. According to police, he loaded Miranda's body into a car and drove to a house in Largo, a home belonging to Michelle, Brandy's mother. It was inside that house, investigators say, that Miranda's body was dismembered. The very thought of it left seasoned officers shaken, a gruesome, calculated attempt to erase any trace of what had happened. But Gress's efforts to hide the crime didn't end there. After leaving the Largo house, he drove again, this time into Hillsborough County. There, in a quiet, unassuming area, he placed what was left of Miranda into a dumpster. By the time police tracked down the location, the dumpster had already been emptied and its contents taken to a landfill. Detectives immediately launched a search effort, combing through tons of waste under blinding floodlights, hoping to recover Miranda's remains. It was the darkest possible outcome, but for investigators, the search became about more than evidence. It was about bringing Miranda home, giving her grandmother and her baby anything to hold on to. By March 8th, police had enough evidence to make their move. That morning, 37-year-old Michelle Brandes walked into the police station and turned herself in. Detectives charged her with first-degree murder. Her partner, Stephen Gress, was already behind bars, now facing both first-degree murder and kidnapping charges. At a press conference, Police Chief Anthony Holloway didn't hold back. He called the case one of the most horrific crimes he had ever seen and promised the department would pursue every possible charge until justice was done. But for Miranda's family, no number of charges can undo what happened. Her grandmother is left to raise Miranda's baby, a child who will grow up never knowing the young mother who fought to create a better life. And for the community, the case remains a grim reminder of how quickly vulnerability can be exploited. Even with 2 suspects in custody, there are questions that may never be answered, the biggest one of all: why? Justice is coming, but the scars of this case, and the memory of a 16-year-old girl who just wanted to be loved, will linger far longer than any courtroom sentence. If you want to see more cases like this one, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share this video to keep Miranda's story alive.